It was a breezy afternoon in Southern California when I first stepped into a nursing home to visit my Uncle Early, who had recently suffered a stroke. That day, the scent of fresh coffee wafted through the hallway, and the nurse on duty greeted me with a warm smile. I recall feeling hopeful and relieved. After all, Uncle Earl was a proud World War II veteran who had lived independently for decades. He deserved a place where he would be treated with the utmost care. But as the weeks wore on, subtle signs began to surface. A sorrowful glance, unexpected bruises, and moments of confusion that didn't match the bright man I knew. Those little hints pointed to a difficult truth. Not every nursing home experience is as idyllic as we might hope. Today, I want to share 5 major red flags that could signal your loved one is suffering in a nursing home. This perspective doesn't come solely from textbooks or formal training. It's shaped by personal interactions with friends, family, fellow churchgoers, and countless stories that have been entrusted to me by folks around America. Age is an issue of mind over matter, Mark Twain famously quipped. If you don't mind, it does. But in truth, as we grow older, we may need extra help. The question is whether that help nurtures our dignity or quietly erodes it. Let's explore these 5 warning signs to ensure your loved ones, who have spent their whole lives caring for us, get the care they so richly deserve. 1. Drastic changes in mood or personality. Imagine your mother has always been the life of the party. She was the one who organized 4th of July barbecues, Thanksgiving dinners, and Christmas get-togethers with unstoppable energy. Yet within a few weeks of moving into a nursing home, she becomes withdrawn. She barely speaks, avoids eye contact, and even shows bouts of frustration. You might initially think it's her age catching up, but whenever family members suspect such a dramatic change is too sudden, it's worth paying close attention. I recall visiting my friend Nancy's mother, Bernice, not long after she'd moved to a facility outside Chicago. Bernice had always been quick with a laugh, especially when recounting her days working in a local bakery. Yet on this visit, she was quietly staring at the wall. When asked about her day, she shrugged and whispered, "I don't want to bother anyone." Nancy felt a wave of concern wash over her. It turned out that Bernice had been experiencing verbal mistreatment from a care aide who felt overworked, leaving Bernice to feel like a burden. One reason for these personality changes could be subtle emotional abuse, where staff or even other residents intimidate or belittle your loved one. Another possibility is that the facility is simply too short-staffed. Residents may sense they're inconveniencing the busy staff, leading them to withdraw. Over time, that can breed a sadness that's uncharacteristic for someone who used to be bright and joyful. Look also for irritability that seems out of the norm. An older gentleman I knew named Frank, a former history teacher, was known for his calm demeanor. Yet, after moving to a certain nursing home, he snapped at relatives during visits and seemed perpetually on edge. He later confided in his daughter that nurses often rushed him during meals and chastised him if he took too long. That sense of being hurried or scolded can lead to a defensive attitude. Pay attention when your loved one expresses anxiety about simple tasks, like asking for water or requesting help to use the bathroom. If they hesitate because they fear a rude response or disapproval, that's a glaring red flag. Properly run nursing homes encourage seniors to speak up about their needs. If the environment feels tense and judgmental, seniors might internalize their worries, believing they must handle discomfort on their own. When you visit, gently ask open-ended questions about the staff and day-to-day life. Watch the staff-resident interactions for a few minutes if possible. If you notice a lack of warmth or a sense of hurry that borders on impatience, take note. "Time is the coin of your life," wrote Carl Sandburg, and in a nursing home, staff time is precious. But rushed, impersonal care can erode an elder's sense of self-worth. If you detect a personality shift in your loved one, bring it up in a care meeting. Document any incidents that you find especially concerning. Keep track of who was on duty if your loved one complains of feeling ridiculed or dismissed. Sometimes these issues can be resolved with open communication and staff training. However, if you see no improvement or if management seems indifferent, consider looking for a new facility. A strong, compassionate, caregiving environment should make your loved one feel secure, respected, and understood. Anything less should not be tolerated. 2. Unexplained physical injuries or signs of neglect. My Uncle Earl, whom I mentioned earlier, was proud of his military background and had always carried himself with quiet dignity. One day, I noticed several bruises on his forearms, lined up in a way that didn't seem random. When I asked him about it, he looked uncomfortable and mumbled something about bumping into a wheelchair, yet his voice trembled and he quickly changed the subject. That uneasy feeling in my stomach told me something was off. Physical red flags can come in many forms: bruises, cuts, bed sores, frequent falls, or unexplained weight loss. While aging bodies do bruise easily, consistent injuries, especially in similar spots, suggest rough handling or neglect. Bed sores, also known as pressure ulcers, generally occur when a person isn't moved or turned often enough. In a quality nursing home, staff stay vigilant to prevent these painful sores by assisting with repositioning. If you spot bed sores, particularly in advanced stages, it's a severe warning sign that the facility might be neglecting basic care. Sometimes seniors themselves feel embarrassed about these injuries. They might worry they'll be seen as complainers, or they fear retaliation if they speak up. One senior I knew, a retired librarian named Margaret, developed a severe bed sore on her tailbone. She was hesitant to mention it because she didn't want to cause trouble for the overworked aides. Unfortunately, that silence led to a severe infection that kept her hospitalized for weeks. It broke my heart to see her go through something that could have been prevented with timely care. Dehydration and malnutrition also fall under physical neglect. If your loved one complains about constant thirst, or if they've lost a noticeable amount of weight in a short period, those are signs they might not be getting enough to drink or eat. Some nursing homes structure meal times rigidly. If a senior is slow to get to the dining hall, or if nobody assists them with feeding, they might skip meals altogether. Gradually, this can weaken their immune system and lead to ongoing health complications. When you visit, take a close look at the environment. Is the floor frequently wet or cluttered, increasing the risk of falls? Are mobility aids like canes or walkers readily available? I remember seeing a resident named Everett struggling to navigate the hall because his walker was nowhere in sight. An aide later confessed they had borrowed it for another resident. This kind of oversight might seem minor, but it points to a deeper problem with resource management and staff diligence. Don't be afraid to talk directly to the nurses or administrators if you notice injuries or signs of neglect. Document the date, time, and nature of any concerning incidents. If staff explanations don't make sense or if they appear defensive, treat that as an additional red flag. Most states have adult protective services or ombudsman programs designed to investigate complaints about nursing home care. It may feel daunting to file a formal grievance, but remember, advocating for your loved one can also protect other residents who might be enduring the same neglect. Physical safety is the foundation of quality elder care. Our older relatives have spent decades contributing to their communities, raising families, paying taxes, and enriching the lives of countless others. They deserve a safe, nurturing environment. If you suspect anything less, trust that instinct. A ship in harbor is safe, John A. Shedd wrote, but that is not what ships are built for. Our elders deserve to sail through their later years with dignity, free from harm and guided by respectful caregivers. If that safety net is broken, it's time to act decisively. 3. Poor communication and lack of response to needs. While spending time with my mother-in-law at a care facility near Dallas, I noticed something troubling. Every time she pressed the call button to request help using the restroom, it took ages for anyone to respond. Mind you, I understand caregivers can't materialize instantly, but when these delays span 20 minutes or more, day after day, that signals a serious problem. If the staff is overburdened or not adequately trained, residents may end up feeling discouraged from asking for the help they need. Communication goes beyond call buttons. It encompasses how staff members interact with residents, how they update families on health changes, and even whether they respect personal requests. A dear friend named Sam once told me how he visited his wife daily, only to find her bed in disarray and her hearing aid missing. When he asked staff about it, no one seemed to know who last assisted her. It was as though the left hand had no idea what the right hand was doing. Sam's frustration soared. He felt that every question he posed was met with a shrug, or worse, a dismissive, "We're doing what we can." Pay special attention to how your loved one's concerns are handled. Are staff members patient in explaining schedules, medication routines, or changes in care plans? In a good facility, staff will try to keep residents in the loop, adjusting their explanations if someone has hearing difficulties or cognitive impairments. If your loved one has to repeat themselves multiple times just to get a glass of water, or if staff seem perpetually exasperated by their questions, that can be a telltale sign of a dysfunctional environment. Language barriers might also come into play. The United States, being a melting pot, has residents and staff from diverse backgrounds. If your loved one speaks primarily English but the caregiver team isn't fluent, or vice versa, that can lead to misunderstandings. I remember meeting a Korean-American gentleman named Mr. Choi who struggled because only one staff member spoke his native language. He felt lonely and anxious, unable to express even small preferences, like wanting a bowl of warm soup instead of the sandwich often served at lunch. We are here to add what we can to life, not to get what we can from it, Sir William Osler said. And in a proper nursing home, the staff should aim to enhance each resident's day, not just tick tasks off a checklist. Another aspect is whether the facility promptly informs you of any major incidents, like a fall or a sudden change in behavior. I once witnessed a family absolutely furious because they only found out that their father had fallen 2 days later, and by then he was dealing with severe bruising. Effective communication demands transparency. A caring facility will notify the family and detail what happened, how it was handled, and what steps are being taken to prevent future issues. When evaluating communication, you may also want to see if the home offers easy ways to keep in touch. Video calls, phone lines in rooms, or social workers who coordinate family updates. If your calls go unanswered, or you routinely find the main phone line busy, that can indicate chronic understaffing or a simple lack of organization. If these communication gaps persist, arrange a meeting with the facility director or senior staff. Present your concerns calmly, citing specific examples. Ask how they plan to address the issues and request a timeline. If the response is vague or you see no improvement, you might consider contacting state regulatory agencies or transferring your loved one to a better managed home. Seniors have a right to be heard. Their voices, whether confident or frail, carry the weight of a lifetime. Ensuring strong lines of communication is critical to preserving both their dignity and their day-to-day well-being. 4. Unsanitary conditions or declining personal hygiene. Back when my arthritis was flaring up and I spent time in a short-term rehab center near Atlanta, I was alarmed by the state of the communal shower area. Floors left wet with bits of soap scum and a damp, musty smell that permeated the air. If you've ever visited an impeccable nursing home, you'll know how different it feels. Tidy hallways, fresh-smelling linens, and a sense of calm order. When facilities neglect cleanliness, residents can face much bigger problems than unpleasant odor. Personal hygiene is especially telling. Some seniors need help with bathing, brushing their teeth, trimming nails, or getting dressed each day. If you find your loved one's hair greasy or they are wearing the same clothes for several days in a row, you have reason to be concerned. A friend, Carla, described how she visited her mother one afternoon and discovered soiled clothing tossed in a corner for what appeared to be days. When she asked the staff about it, they mumbled an excuse about being short on laundry supplies. Carla decided right then and there that her mother deserved better. Poor cleanliness can lead to infections. Elderly individuals often have weakened immune systems and they're more vulnerable to bacteria and viruses. Facilities should adhere to strict cleaning protocols, especially in shared spaces like dining areas and recreation rooms. If you consistently see trash overflowing, dirty dishes piling up, or stained carpets that never seem to get shampooed, it might indicate systemic neglect. Add to that the possibility of mold or pest infestations, and you have a recipe for potential health hazard. Do a quick smell test when you walk in. While a fleeting odor can happen anywhere, for instance, if a resident just finished lunch in their room, persistent foul smells typically mean deeper issues. Watch for sticky floors or tables, which could mean spills aren't cleaned promptly. Look inside the bathrooms if you can, and check the shower facilities. Many residents rely on staff to help them in these areas, so if the communal spaces are unsanitary, it's likely individual hygiene may be compromised too. Bed sores, which I mentioned earlier, can sometimes be tied to cleanliness issues. If sheets aren't changed regularly, or if the resident isn't properly cleaned after an accident, these sores can develop or worsen. The same goes for urinary tract infections if a senior isn't changed out of soiled garments swiftly. I recall a conversation with a man named Don, who tearfully explained that his mother had developed multiple UTIs within just a few months in her nursing home. Investigations revealed that staff didn't change her bedding often, leaving her sleeping in damp sheets overnight. If your loved one complains about itchy skin or mentions rashes, that could also be linked to poor hygiene or inadequate laundering. Some homes use strong detergents that might irritate sensitive skin if not properly rinsed. Others might be lax about rinsing out washcloths, leading to bacterial buildup. Simple details like encouraging residents to wash their hands before meals or after using the restroom can make a world of difference in preventing illness. When you notice these signs, speak to the housekeeping or administrative staff. Politely ask about their cleaning schedules, how often linens are changed, and whether they monitor personal hygiene for residents who can't manage it on their own. If you only hear excuses or if improvements never come, trust your instincts. Cleanliness is next to godliness, many of our parents told us when we were kids. That simple statement rings even truer for seniors who rely on others to maintain a safe, comfortable living environment. 5. Isolation and limited social engagement. A neighbor of mine, Patricia, was startled when she visited her father in a nursing home near Boston. Instead of finding him in the common room or chatting with fellow residents, she discovered him alone in a barren recreation area with the TV on low volume. He seemed disoriented and didn't even know there'd been a sing-along event that afternoon. When she spoke to staff, they casually mentioned that he never seemed interested, so they stopped inviting him. Patricia's father had always loved music. Something didn't add up. Isolation is a subtle yet powerful red flag. Many seniors already struggle with loneliness, especially if friends or a spouse have passed away. A quality nursing home aims to combat that loneliness with group activities, social events, exercise classes, or simple daily gatherings in a shared lounge. If your loved one spends most of their time alone, without meaningful interaction, it can accelerate depression or even cognitive decline. How do you gauge whether social interaction is adequate? Ask about the facility's activity schedule. In many homes, staff or volunteers organize games like bingo, crafts, or holiday celebrations. Some bring in local high school students for reading sessions or invite community groups to perform. If these programs exist mainly on paper and staff hardly encourage residents to join, that's a red flag. Seniors often need a gentle nudge, someone to escort them to the activity or reassure them that it's okay to participate. Tech access can also be a factor. These days, more seniors are learning to use smartphones or tablets to video chat with distant grandchildren. If your loved one struggles with technology, does the staff help them? A friend named Rob mentioned that the facility in which his mother lived had a dedicated tablet for residents to schedule calls with family. He praised that arrangement, saying it kept his mother connected to relatives scattered across the country. If the nursing home you're evaluating discourages visits or fails to support digital communication, your loved one could end up feeling cut off. Another thing to watch out for is staff who seem to block or discourage visits. "He's resting, may come another day" can be a valid suggestion if your loved one truly needs rest, but if it becomes a consistent pattern, it might signal that the facility wants to limit outside eyes on what's happening inside. Stay alert to how staff members treat visitors. Do they appear warm and welcoming, or do they act annoyed or evasive? Emotional neglect can manifest in subtle ways too. Perhaps your loved one is physically present in group activities but consistently ignored, or the staff might focus on their basic tasks like delivering meals without engaging in small talk or acknowledging birthdays. Over time, your loved one can start feeling like they're just a name on a chart rather than an individual with a lifetime of experiences and stories. In these cases, speak with the activities coordinator or social worker on site. Sometimes a simple conversation can lead to more proactive efforts to involve your loved one in social settings. If the facility still shows no interest in fostering community, it may be time to consider a better option. A close friend of mine moved her mother to a smaller, more home-like residence where staff encouraged group meals, sing-alongs, and daily walks. The difference in her mother's disposition was remarkable. She went from solitary and subdued to alert and cheerful within a few weeks. Isolation can steal the spark from even the most resilient senior. As Helen Keller once said, "Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much." Ensuring your loved one has companionship and opportunities to engage with peers is vital, not only for their emotional health, but also for their physical well-being. After all, our elders deserve to thrive, not just survive, in their new home. Nursing homes can be places of comfort, compassion, and genuine support. I've seen facilities across the country where staff members greet residents by name, where the air is filled with laughter and music, and where families are relieved to find their loved ones living with dignity. Such environments do exist, and they deserve our applause. Unfortunately, some places fall short, making vigilance essential. If you spot any of these red flags, sudden mood swings, unexplained injuries, poor communication, unsanitary conditions, or social isolation, do not brush them aside. Document what you see, speak up, and enlist the help of administrators or state agencies when necessary. The well-being of your loved one might hinge on your willingness to become their voice. At the same time, try to keep an open mind. Sometimes issues stem from misunderstandings or staff shortages that can be remedied with timely intervention, but if a nursing home consistently fails to address serious concerns, it's time to explore other options. Ultimately, the greatest lesson I've learned over the years is that we must strike a balance between caution and hope. I've met caregivers who would move mountains for their residents, working late hours, providing comforting words during tough nights, even singing old gospel tunes to help lull folks to sleep. It reminds me of a saying I once heard: growing old is like climbing a mountain. You get a little out of breath, but the view is much better. Our older loved ones have earned the right to that better view, a vantage of security, respect, and community. So, I invite you to think deeply. Is there something more you can do to ensure your cherished family member or friend receives the attention and care they deserve? Perhaps it's scheduling regular visits, advocating for more activities, or even rallying other families to ask questions. And if you found these insights helpful, please share them, leave a comment, or subscribe for more discussions on senior well-being. Together we can help our loved ones maintain their dignity and spirit in whichever place they call home. After all, it's our turn to look out for the people who've spent a lifetime looking out for us.